If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We are the 9th ranked podcast by local artificial intelligence, and we talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We are also happy to talk about the Social Suplex newsletter, which is published every month and available at socialsuplex.com. It contains news on dozens of promotions from across the world, as well as features from various people, writers in wrestling, and we really do hope you will check it out. There's going to be some really cool stuff this month that I think everybody will enjoy reading. So, today is Sunday, November 23rd, 2025, and we are going to kick things off with a discussion, an intense discussion of everything going on in total nonstop action wrestling, Trish. No, that's a joke.
I actually thought you were serious.
This is what happens when we don't get the schedule together. No, hey, there was a pay-per-view last night. There was an AEW pay-per-view last night called Full Gear, and lots and lots and lots of things happened. There were title changes. There were death matches. There were no-holds-barred matches. There was $1 million 6-man tag matches. And there was a steel cage match at the end.
So there was far too many gimmicks.
Yeah, there was a lot of fucking gimmicks. And Trish and I are going to recap this in depth. It was kind of interesting that this fell on our podcast day recording. We have watched the podcast, the pay-per-view. We haven't talked too much about it with each other because we like to save our thoughts for you guys. But we are going to get into it in what will likely be a podcast that could possibly anger a bunch of, internet wrestling men aged 32 to 45. I suspect it will be pissing a lot of people off with some of my takes.
Look, and even if it isn't, people are going to assume what we're going to say.
Yeah. People are going to be like, they didn't like it because Hangman lost. Like, dude, you don't even fucking listen to the fucking thing. And Hangman. This is like every time I say I love Will Ospreay, I think he's awesome. She just doesn't like Will Ospreay because of Hangman. I'm like, okay, fuck, whatever. You guys are going to just interpret you're going to just gaslight me, put words in my mouth. That's fine. Sure. All right. So, show overall, Trish, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was kind of mid. And that was even before the main event hit. It was sort of interesting in that I was thinking about it. And I think one of the challenges that this pay-per-view had was that so many of these storylines have been going on for so long. And I feel like they've missed the peak with so many of these arcs that you ended up with a bunch of fairly predictable outcomes for angles that didn't hit because we'd been waiting for them for so long. And that's not necessarily I think predictability in wrestling is a good thing because it means that when you're not predictable, it's a positive. I think it can be a positive. But I think one of the problems that AEW is having right now is this just a lot of shit that is just dragging out forever. I was shocked when the Death Riders didn't turn on Moxley after Blood and Guts, and I was shocked when the Death Riders didn't turn on Moxley last night. I'm like, what are these motherfuckers waiting for? And the same was true of Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher, which was an amazing match. match. But like, again, it's been going on for a really long time. The Hurt Syndicate and the Demand have never not been feuding. I'm not sure what a world where those guys not feuding is like, quite frankly. Toni Storm, this was definitely a change for her, and like that they'd moved on with the women's, but Mercedes and Chris is a match we have seen before. I just think that the build to this particular pay-per-view, I didn't think was particularly strong. And that's happened before. I think we could point to a bunch of pay-per-views where the build hasn't been good, but the quality of the pay-per-view itself has been so incredible that it's like dragged the whole thing back a little bit. And I just didn't feel like this happened this time. There were a few matches that I was kind of like, the Casino Gauntlet I thought was really disappointing. And there were a couple of other things where I was kind of like, some of this is predictable. And, the stuff that wasn't predictable, I didn't think was particularly good. So... we'll get into that. But what were your thoughts overall? I think you and I kind of both agreed that it was about a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. And I think I put it on the board today, actually. It's like, that's pretty much
why I had confidence in saying that.
Yeah. Cheat. No, I felt like this was definitely the show where I felt like the gimmicks were far too much.
Yeah.
And if you are going to do a big shock thing at the end, you'd be much better restricting the gimmicks and everything else for that. However, the way they delivered that at the end honestly makes no difference at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just felt like an overload of gimmicks that we've seen over and over and over, because it feels like I probably should do a count on this, but it feels like we've seen far more gimmick matches in the last couple of pay-per-views than we have in previous months.
Yeah.
And it's got to a point where it was exhausting. And especially when you had the two back-to-back in the middle of the show, where
I thought it hurt both of those matches. I thought Fletcher versus Briscoe was a better match for some weird reason. And I thought it was hurt by the fact that Mox versus Kyle O'Reilly was right before it.
Yeah, and there were times from someone in the building that sent me some details earlier today where they said, you could hear a pin drop in that first match. Right. So it's difficult sometimes, and they have issues with the crowd all night. And I think that reflects on the build. It reflects on that you haven't got people to believe into some of these stories or to invest in some of these stories. Some of them have been ongoing, as you said, far too long. Some of them are... You haven't presented the characters at enough of a level for people to invest in those programs. And some of it is, someone pointed out today, rather than there being kind of a direction towards things, people just kind of come out of nowhere. So they do absolutely nothing for months and months and months and months. Then they come out of nowhere and do something, and then expect everybody to react. And it doesn't always work like that, because you need to build people up. And, if you look at, and, we can talk about Chris as an example with that in a bit, as to why... I understand what they're trying to do with that reign, but that's one of the big challenges of it. You can even look at Samoa Joe. You're on the pre-show at All Out, and you do a pre-show at Forbidden Door. You're not doing really anything, and all of a sudden it's like, So there's so much of that it really challenges kind of that investment, and there's nothing currently with real long-term investment.
No. It's
being paid off. I think... You could possibly look at it with the Death Rider stuff, but the Death Rider stuff probably should have been gone by now. It's dragged out far too long at this point. And, you made them the top heel group in the company again, which was a mistake.
Yep.
And now we're dragging it out again to where? So, Pac's going to be the leader, okay? So now it's the second heel company. Second heel group in the promotion. And I think that's the other thing as well that you feel is I think everyone was hoping kind of after All In that we'd get a little bit of time where baby faces would feel like more prominent, and the constant heat that had been for the last year would feel like it had moved away. And I don't feel that. I don't feel like the programming has changed. I don't feel like there's been a change in the way things are presented, in the people being pushed, in the feel of the shows in the way that I was expecting or hoping to see. And instead what we've had is more of the same. So the feeling is pretty much the same. The mood of the shows is the same. And then because you haven't got any of these big kind of directional changes or kind of... things actually moving along in people's stories, what we've ended up with is having to replace that with gimmick after gimmick after gimmick. And this one kind of felt like it really was at the crux of it. I don't think, to be honest, any of the last 3 pay-per-views have been fantastic to me. I don't feel that way. I think there's been a lot of filler on these shows that could really do with just being cut out, to be honest.
I don't disagree with you. I think one of the other challenges right now, and I think to use one of our favorite expressions, in a vacuum. I think that if these were specific, like smaller problems that were affecting one or two feuds as opposed to like all the feuds across the board, we'd feel like they wouldn't stand out as much. And I don't want to make it sound like this is, I don't expect all of this to be perfect all the time. I don't expect every feud to be booked beautifully and to end exactly when it hits the right heat and all that other shit. But your other problem with a lot of this is that, especially with the Death Riders, it feels like a lot of these feuds are going in weird order, right? Like Darby beats Moxley in the I Quit match, beats him, and then they go to Blood and Guts, and then out of Blood and Guts, he goes into a feud with Pac, and then Pac wins. It just sort of seems like it was such a quick and immediate negating of like Darby's beating Mox. And then, we have Blood and Guts, right, which goes into, a no holds barred match. Like, it just feels like these things are happening backwards, right? As opposed to like, the individual feuds should be leading to the big group feud rather than the big group feud leading to the individual. I don't know. And I mean, I maybe like, that's kind of a thing that I'm maybe expecting something different than what they're thinking of, but it's just I feel like it leads to the overall weirdness of like some of the builds for this, where you're just like, well, why is this happening now as opposed to like 3 weeks ago?
I think you can do that, but the issue more with it is, and especially with that particular program and with Jon Moxley since All In, is that he can do some really good work, because it's much easier when you're at the top. It's a little bit different, you are the kind of the obstacle, and it's harder for you to do that sort of character work. You don't develop, you kind of are static, and it's reliant on the people playing off you to kind of bring that to the table. So that's why, if you're healed, and the babyface chases are the most important things, right? And then if you're a babyface, you need heels that really challenge you and to be able to succeed. So for Mox, it's like, you can come off that, so you can do some great character work, but he's kind of moved into what Danielson used to be.
Yes.
That he is the guy that he can put anyone over now, and people will say, oh, he's had a great, and the work's been good since, and it has been good. But it's like, he's putting these people over, but they don't move.
Right. Nothing happens after they win.
Yeah. So he's still the number one top guy in terms of presentation in the company. And then everyone that beats him doesn't move up. It's static. And that's something that I feel quite a lot across the board at the moment.
Yeah.
Is that people get to have like their moment in the sun, but they don't progress upwards. The order is still the same. So with that, like Darby beats Moxley, he doesn't move. He's still in the same place.
Right.
Kyle O'Reilly, he beats Moxley. Where's he going? Are you elevating him, or are you going to leave him in exactly the same place? And then you look at someone like Wheeler Yuta, for all the charisma that he has now compared to what he does, he's still in the same fucking place that he was when this thing started.
Yep.
So it's like, it's great that he's putting these people over. It's great that he's doing things that, people are finding captivating. But unless the booking follows up with it, then it's not worth what it should be. And then it just feels like it goes on and on and on. And, I think Wade Keller has the idea that Darby and Moxley could team against the Death Riders.
Yeah.
Could you see that one?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it goes. I think... I have really enjoyed Box in the last couple of months. He's definitely been one of the bright spots for like me in terms of the show. And I think, he's just been like his best comedy king self to some degree. And it's something I've enjoyed, but I also am not, I understand. And I think one of the things that I always find fascinating when people talk about these old guys and how giving they are and how wonderful they are. And it's like, yeah, they'll give up everything except TV time. They'll give up a loss. They'll give up a title, but they're not giving up their 15-minute promo. And that's the thing that you actually really need to be given up in order to elevate some of these guys. Like, and I think one of the funny things I find so fascinating is like, in terms of like who has the agency in these feuds, right? It's so heel heavy in terms of like who's driving the action. And I'm not saying it shouldn't ever be heel heavy, because I think it should be from a storytelling standpoint. But when it's always heel heavy, it sort of comes across that your baby faces are like just passive. Like they don't
have
do
no
anything.
agency.
Yeah,
they have
and so
absolutely no
like,
agency.
all right, like why am I cheering for this person?
Yeah, and that leads to, other issues as you go further down the road.
Right.
And it shouldn't be solely reliant on the babyface to get themselves over in that regard or keep themselves over.
Yeah.
But it has become far too much of that as of late. And that's not to take away from it's a great moment for Mark Briscoe.
Yeah, it was great.
It should have happened a month ago at least.
Yeah.
But it was a great moment
Why
for Mark
we had,
Briscoe.
what was it, 5 matches out of this or 6?
Yeah.
I don't know that this was a feud that deserved that many matches.
No, and, you know, in terms of elevating him from, you know, he beat MJF and then treaded water for so long that, and I don't feel like this is upwards for him either. It's sideways, right? So we're giving him a belt to keep people happy, and that's fine. You know, people will be happy, just like when, you know, when Eddie won the title from Claudio at Grand Slam, same thing, right? Or the Continental Classic, same thing. It's like, and that's where kind of giving people a belt has become a bit of a thing. I agree with you on the Casino Gauntlet. I didn't think it was one of their stronger ones. I think that it did show more of the individual characters and stories than the male gauntlet at All In did. I thought the women's gauntlet was vastly superior on that night. But there was just something missing. And I think maybe that gimmick's just been overused this year. It's lost that excitement factor of it because it's fucking it feels like it's every couple of months, you know, at the least.
I think the gauntlet works for me when it's really fast paced and you have a lot of action in the ring combined with, oh shit, there's this guy facing this guy and there's a history here and there's these two unexpected. And then, you know, a little bit like I felt a little bit of that when Kevin Knight and Speedball like kind of came together because it was like, oh shit, we wanted to see these guys fight each other. Like, you know, I feel like that's when the gauntlet's at its best. I felt like last night it was just, I don't understand why, like the Hurt Syndicate again, like what are we doing here? Like what's going on with this? Like this made no sense to me. You're going to put these guys in 1 and 2 and then they're going to get beat up for what? The 2 guys in AEW that they'll sell for. And then they're going to be sidelined for like the first 10, 15 minutes of the match and then come in, do a meat spot and then get thrown out by 2 big guys and then they're done. Like, was that worthy of like, you know, you not squash, but you had a really fast and dominant win over Ricochet on Wednesday night last week. Like why? He won. And I think one of the things that I find about this particular pay-per-view was I felt like I saw the seams on the politics a little bit too much. Like the tag match was another one where I was kind of like, you know, it just very much felt like, okay, FTR is going to do all of these spots to make Bandito look amazing so that when, you know, they finally beat him, maybe the fans won't be as mad that Brodito's losing the titles, you know, like we're going back to FTR again. Like I just felt like the politicking was really obvious for some of this stuff. And I don't like that's always going to be there to a degree, but I just didn't like it as much last night. Like I felt like that kind of messed the gauntlet up. It was like, oh, who are the guys who are going to get beat up and thrown around and willing to sell, right? Like you could almost, if you would give me a list of who was going to be in it, I probably could have basically given you beat for beat what was going to happen. And I feel like the gauntlet's best when it's more of a surprise and you don't expect some of these matchups and you don't expect some of these guys the way they're interacting with each other. I don't know. I had another point in there that I've digressively forgotten in my excitement, but yeah, the gauntlet was just kind of a disappointment. I'm glad Ricochet won. Like the guy's been incredible. I think they cooled him off for no reason that I can determine. He's been stuck in this feud with the Hurt Business for so long at this point. I think he does babysitting. I think he does a great job. I think he's basically shown up and basically proved like what he can do. But I think like, again, we've got another belt that it's just going to be a thing where now he can't lose. And it's going to mean that means that he's going to be sidelined from feuds that I might be interested in seeing him in because now he has a belt and he can't lose. It's like, I just feel like that happens so freaking much, you know? And I don't know. Like when people talk about like, oh, the swerve and the surprise and all this other stuff, like that's the kind of surprises I'd be more interested in is like, you know, not giving somebody a belt that they can't be beaten in a match or they can't have an interesting feud with somebody.
See, I think they thought because Ricochet kind of plays the chicken shit heel that they could squash him on Wednesday and then do this. But it was very funny actually because I know like sometimes people refer to like WWE booking, right?
Right.
But this is absolute Vince McMahon what he would do. Because he used to do it in Money in the Bank every time. Yeah. Like, you know, WrestleMania 31, Seth Rollins, right? I'm going to beat him in the match of Randy Orton and then I'm going to have him cash in. And it puts those people at a weakness at the start, right? So he's not a strong champion to start with. And you're saying you can get away with it with that character and it's a way of rewarding him, etc., etc. But maybe we could just build him up properly and use him in more high-profile
reward him with like a meaningful feud. Reward him with like a good and interesting opponent that like would be fun for him to.
Yeah, where was his world title program this August, September after being involved with MJF in that burning angle? Yeah, you know,
like why didn't we have that? Like that just didn't. You know, I don't know. It just feels like
these are the things. it's like, it feels like it's niggly, but these are all the little things that have crept up since the summer, where all the detail work has kind of slipped away.
Yeah.
And we've had so many finishes that feel kind of replicating each other.
Yeah.
Especially like the big group finish at the end compared to the big group finish at the Open. I thought they were far too close together.
Yep.
There's other things on this show like that as well. And it's just like, it's just a lack of detail and a care. And it's like, it's one of those things, right? Because as long as people are talking, people think everything is fine and that sort of thing. But that and elevation, you know, outside of just moving people sideways and giving them a belt, but actually elevating them upwards or solidifying them or changing the order of the way the company is.
Right.
Like, these are the long-term issues that keep coming up over and over and over again. And it's difficult to see how they change, but also, like, they have to, right? This is like the lifeblood. You can't just... Once you stagnate as a company, that's where it becomes the most difficult. So I think the way that we all kind of hope is like it's a holding period, right? So you've now got to see two. You might finally get somewhere with this Takesha Okada story.
Come on. We could drag that out for another 3 years if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's another one. It's like, I get like you want to get the timing right, but you have to have things pay off. You know, it's the same with the Paul Levesque booking, isn't it? Where everything has to take fucking million years. Just getting that timing right, speeding things up when you need to speed things up. That's kind of feels like some of the most important things. And I feel like we've been treading water until certain people come back from here and certain people come back from there. And we don't want to do this yet and we don't want to do that yet because it's the MLB playoffs or whatever. And now it's like they're trying to inject some life into it, but you've not built anything up enough to do it.
Right.
And then it feels like completely out of place. So, and look, I've not enjoyed this TV, I don't think, for months, really. You know, sometimes it's a lot, I use the words in a vacuum too much, but it's like, there's been shows where I go, oh, that was good, kind of thing. But when you look at, like, the layout, like, week to week, it just, I don't know, I just find things more frustrating than I do actually rewarding. And I think especially in character work as well. And then that's added to by the fact that you've got people coming back in, you know, like Orange Cassidy, same spot, does nothing.
Right. Eddie Kingston does nothing.
Yeah, that's a disaster.
We'll get into that. But like, but that's part of it. It's like, instead of taking these characters that fans love that they haven't seen in months and like doing something with them, they're sort of either shunted off into a holding pattern, lose a bunch of shit for no reason, or are there to put somebody else over. And it's like, that's fine. I'm not saying you can't ever do that, but is the time to do that right when they come back from being out for months and months? Like, the audience is rabid for them. And then it's like, I'll tell you, I mean, I was at Dynamite in Boston this week, and like, Orange was probably one of the most over people in the arena. Like, I don't know that the crowds were as nuts for anybody as they were for him. And I'm prejudiced, but I'm still objectively prejudiced, I guess I would say, as that regard. Like,
sure.
And I'm kind of like, so you've taken this and like, he's done nothing but lose to the Death Riders. Like, which, fine, I guess, but just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense when you've got so many of your main people out.
Right.
So this was the perfect time to either use the returns to, you know, and put them in a stronger position, or to elevate other people. And I don't feel like, especially in the single side, they've done either.
No.
I think they've treaded water. And
Fletcher hasn't done much of anything. Like, he's just been kind of in the mid-card defending the TNT title, which is fine, but like, you know what I mean? Like, some of the stuff with Okada is kind of getting interesting a little bit, but it's kind of like, is this just going to go to a 3-way Connie finish, right? Is that what we're doing here? Right?
Yeah, the key with Fletcher is like, do you actually elevate him upwards now?
Right.
You know, is he going to break through that curtain like alongside Swerve Strickland, who's the only
other
star to break through in the last however many years? You know, there hasn't been anybody else that's broken through to the top. There isn't anyone on that men's side that has. You know, and on the women's side, Tony's the only one that has on that side too.
Yep.
You know, there hasn't been anybody break through. And it's like, and I don't see that as any different. So should we just talk about, I want to talk about the women's match, the Chris Statlander and Mercedes Moné match. And I want to talk about Chris's reign a little bit because, you know, in a lot of ways, I know I've seen a lot of people in the past compare Chris to Hangman Page, right? Because she kind of never got there. And she's such a talented in-ring wrestler.
Yeah.
I always thought, you know, prior to maybe Mercedes' arrival, I thought she was the strongest in-ring worker they had in the company. You know, the matches that she's pulled out of, like, Britt Baker, you know, if you want to point that one out.
Yep.
Jade. It's really good. Jade. Yeah. in fact, even in terms of everyone that doubted her and Willow when it came to All Out last year going after Pac and Ospreay, right?
Yep.
And how they
killed it.
fucking blew it out of the park and then kind of went nowhere, right? As a theme. So when they went with this one, the issue was, it's the same as what I mentioned earlier, is that it didn't start anywhere, right? So there wasn't some big story. There was a story in terms of her being involved with the Death Riders, but it didn't necessarily involve the title. And she wasn't built up in terms of what she was doing, like, prior to the title. A previous pay-per-view at Forbidden Door, she was on pre-show.
Yep.
It's just like, so they do the title change, and they do it at the time where she's probably at the least over I think she's ever been in the company. And something that's longevity, right? So you've been there for so long.
Yep.
She's been one, I think she's, when I look at the women's roster, I think she's the one that's been there, predominantly all the way through, as I can think of. I think everybody else has kind of either been gone or come in later, and so forth and so forth. So that's difficult. But it's like, that's a risk, right? So I think, we all thought like the idea would be, okay, so you turn her heel because that's the natural thing that you can do. But what they've tried to do is kind of make her over as this super baby face using the fact that she's great in ring. And she is. But it's like, it's a difficult position to start from. And, so you give it a win over Toni Storm, you give it a win over Mercedes Moné. They have very good match last night. Missing crowd, I think some of that's the time,
Yes.
11 o'clock at night, like, what are you doing? There's loads of kids there from what I was told. And the idea of matches starting at that time, big matches, it's like you're pushing it. But I think they also think that there was going to be much more support behind her against Mercedes, but they haven't done anything in terms of her journey and in terms of her presentation and promos and that sort of thing and a focus on it to make that happen.
Right.
And I felt like the build for this, so I was reading loads of comments last week, and obviously like there's a push for women's main event, which I get because, there should have been one in March.
Yep.
That was the one that it should have been, the first one, and it didn't happen. And then now it's like this focus because it feels like it's never going to happen because again, they have a ceiling on them is how it feels. And you don't have to balance that out with everything else. And it's just a mess. But it's like, I was reading it and I thought the only problem with it is I get it because they have this history, they have the previous matches and they were strong, but I don't feel like the build has done anything to kind of infuse people to this one. Or as much as they needed to.
I agree with that. I think I agree with you 100% on this. I think one of the challenges, and I found this with a lot of folks being like, this should main event, this should main event. And I'm like, if you want to say it should main event because they're two really good wrestlers, then that's fine. But as far as I was concerned, the actual feud that they were building to didn't deserve a main event. Like you said, it was not Revolution last year. It was not Tony and Mariah. Like there was nothing to it for me from a perspective. It was, Mercedes won an eliminator match and that was it. And I thought that was like, I'm always amazed by some of the stuff that they don't do when they build some of these feuds. Like, there's so many places they could have gone with it that they just didn't. And it just felt very paint by the numbers. I'm like, was nobody who was not paying attention to this that they, and I'm not here to tell you that Chris Statlander is not without flaws, but I also think some of the flaws are part of the reason why she resonates with the audience this way she does, why people love her.
You've also got to protect people, like putting her on commentary. It's
Bad idea.
that's not her thing, right? It's not her forte. It was very obvious it wasn't her forte. No. So why did you put her in that position in the first place? And then the angle that followed, and she walks off, and I'm like, who came up with that shit? Right. And it's like, oh yeah, obviously, it paints out the fact that she's retaining, but it's like, do you want her to be a strong champion or not? There's been a few of them with Chris so far, and it's like, play to her strengths, and then you need to put her against some heels, not cool heels like Mercedes either, like heels, and maybe you get some with this. But I think they've started from a really difficult place.
They don't do themselves any favors. That's the part that I'm sort of surprised by. I'm like, nobody's doing any favors here. Like, why not?
Yeah, whereas I think actually rather than going to Tony and Mercedes first, she might have actually been better, because she was doing the Death Rider stuff, facing Marina Shafir first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think the program they're going to do, I think they teased that quite heavily in Blood and Guts, and you thought, okay, yeah, that's a sensible one. But it's like, that might have been a better option. Why why the Death Riders were in this form rather than going and doing what you did. I get what they're trying to do. It's kind of similar to what they did with Paige with Danielson in 2021.
Yep.
But that wasn't entirely successful either. So you've got to think these things through, I think, a little bit more. So yeah, I think that's a tough one.
Doesn't work if you don't put the effort into it. Like if you don't build it, you're not going to get the result you want.
No, so it was a nice moment with the shock win, but God, you've got to build these people more. Like, I just feel like they're being set up to not do as well as they could possibly do. And it's just kind of like, well, they've had their turn now, so, you know, they've had their belt run, so everybody should be happy. And it's not, are we maximizing these people? Are you getting as much out of them as you possibly can? Is the company able to benefit from these runs because you've managed to tell these stories effectively? And I'm not sure. I didn't want to do this because, you know, last time when we spoke and I had some notes on AEW, I had a question, I was going to talk about stuff. And I just thought, I don't even want to talk about this yet because I just want to see how Full Gear plays out. I just want to see if I'm seeing things or it's just... I don't feel better about it. I wish I did, but I don't feel better about it as a whole. And I don't know. It feels like there needs to be some sort of sea change, and it's too patterned. Maybe we're too used to the formula now. You know, that happens with bookers, right? Like, it's the same with New Japan. Like the Tsuji Double Gold Dash, like that's just a repeat of Naito's booking in 2019. Like, I can literally see it. I was just like the other week and I was like, but executed worse. And some of that, what is, right?
No, I know.
They nearly saved it in Gifu. Like, Tsuji cut like the best promo of his life and the Tanahashi match was awesome and stuff. And you're like, okay, yeah, you nearly saved it, but you kind of didn't because you could have done this better. But it's like, but yeah, there's just an element of that for me at the moment. And I didn't mind, you know, like FTR were always going to beat Brodito at this show. Brodito was a reign that was not expected to happen. And, you know, I think that reign has helped both of them. But again, it's where they're going to go, right? Because the tag reign's great. And, you know, I think it showcased them somewhat. I think they're a great pairing. You know, dynamics work, the action works, but it's a case of where do they go now? And obviously FTR have got their Cope and Christian date lined up after they do the Bang Gang Gang thing. Because, you know, that's what we need, right? It's more you deserve it nostalgia title runs, but there we are.
You feel bad for the wrestlers a little bit, and like, yes, record this, make a note of the date and time. I do feel a little bit bad for Dax Harwood because I do feel like he's got a little bit of rabbit ears about the criticism, and I'm sure that beating these guys is not, you know, he knows that he's going to take some shit for it, as you can see from the fucking internet today. But I think part of the challenge is like, this is what happens when you don't change this booking philosophy, when you go through stuff where you're like, well, we didn't expect Brodito to be over, so we still have this plan, so now we're going to do this. And part of the reason why people are disappointed is because they're not confident that anybody's going to, you know, what are we going to do with Bandito now? Like, he's not going to get into the main event scene. He's probably going to have a very nice showing in the Continental Classic, and he'll, you know, maybe make it to the semifinals, and that'll be the end of it, right? Like, you know, there's no plan for those guys, and so, like, you can't help but feel like some of the resentment gets played out against the wrestlers who are winning, like the FTRs of the world, when the reality is, like, it's not up to, it shouldn't be up to them. It's not up to them. Like, if we had a plan, well, yeah, exceptions redacted. But like, if we had a plan in place for Brodito where you were confident as a fan of Brody and Bandito that they were going to do something cool with them, you wouldn't probably be mad about it, but you're not confident that they're going to. You kind of know they're going to get lost in the sauce. And so as a result, you're kind of like, fuck FTR. And that's why you end up with people being like, FTR are so selfless. They love everyone. It's like, okay, yeah, they are, but they still fucking beat them, and we're going to go to old guys again. Like, we're going to go to fucking old guys again. I was shocked that Cope and Christian didn't show up last night until Swerve showed up. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, this is why that didn't happen. Like, you can be like, you know, we don't want to. It's just,
he couldn't get the top up.
No, he wasn't coming out if he didn't get his, you know, top up for his quarterly return pop, which is, you know, again, fine. But like, people, I feel like this is where, you know, we had All In and it felt like there was like a change. It felt like, okay, things are different. And then we cruised into the, you know, Residency Autumn, and it was like, okay, like, not everything happened the way we had hoped it would. It hasn't changed as much. It feels like we're in a holding pattern. But yeah, okay, some people came out sick and we want to, you know, people got injured. We want to be understanding of that. And now it's fucking almost December. And like, nothing happened. And it's kind of like, I get that things happen and people are injured and plans and yada yada, but at the end of the day, like, you should be able to at least get one of these things. We shouldn't be in a situation where we have 3 heel factions with the same fucking shit going on, because that's WWE shit. Right? That's WWE. You want to talk about WWE shit? WWE shit is like, 3 factions doing the same thing over and over again. And that's where we're at right now. Like, I find that part to be frustrating as a fan, where I find the television, there's always going to be a match on a show that I'm really going to enjoy, right? And there'll probably be at least one angle that I'm like, oh, I was entertained by this. But a lot of it feels skippable and has felt skippable for a while. Mm-hmm. And that's not good.
I think some of that's the calendar, especially this time of year as well. Yeah. So you've got these back-to-back pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And so nothing really feels like it gets built enough. Nothing feels like it has time to breathe. There's no kind of side quest stories or things that happen in the middle. Yep. So... And then, obviously, you stick something like Blood and Guts there, and it just makes this pay-per-view feel like secondary anyway, because most of the bill for last month is spent around that. So everything is just like a supplement on this show to Blood and Guts. And it's like... So I think that's part of the difficulty, is the way the calendar falls. And they're not going to change that, because obviously pay-per-view is such a big part of their offering now.
Sure.
And especially with, potential new kind of owners for WBD, that's going to be... And look at the deal what WWE got. So that's such a big part. But it's like... You do have the danger of your TV becoming like the Japanese Road 2s or the TV for NXT during takeovers, where no one used to watch the TV ever. Yeah. And I felt like that's become more prominent this autumn than previously. I was trying to skip my brain the other day, and I was trying to think of what big TV matches have there been since the start of September? Like, actual things that you remember. Like, I'm kind of stuck.
I mean, other than Blood and Guts, like...
Yeah, but that's a special, isn't it? But in terms of like singles matches, I came up with nothing. And I thought this was a bigger thing as well, because they're doing so much of the 3-hour shows too. Like, we've just had 2 back-to-back just before pay-per-view week, which felt a bit much. So when you think about the 3-hour format that WWE fans complain about SmackDown, it's like, I can kind of see it. It's rough, right? Like, but it's like... Yeah, that's where it feels skippable, because I'm like, if I don't watch this, will I miss anything that I should watch? And the answer currently a lot of the time is no. Like, I don't have a promo that I have to watch, or I need to see this, or an angle, and I definitely don't have matches. So it's like, that's difficult. That's a difficult place to be. And you have to, for them, they have to keep the balance of their TV so that it's not skippable. And I thought they did a good job with Blood and Guts in terms of trying to set other things up to try and go, okay, we know people haven't been watching with the baseball. We need to get everybody back involved. We're going to have this big promoted show. Let's do it. And then it was kind of like, this week was just the back to normal. Yeah. And that was so draining on a pay-per-view week. It was just like just hype this show, build this show, do something. And then it was just like, no, we'll just do kind of weakish angles and more matches and more matches and more matches. And it's like, you need to be doing more with your TV. Especially now.
Especially like, and again, I don't want to go back to the Hurt Syndicate too much, but that's a perfect example of it, right? Like, we had 2, the entire first hour of Dynamite was built around the Hurt Syndicate getting these 2 first spots in the gauntlet. And then it led to nothing. Like, it led to nothing. Nothing that happened. They could have not even had that, and it would have not. The gauntlet would have been no different. Them winning those spots meant nothing. And I know they've done that before, but it just felt like, what was the point of this? Like, we wasted so much TV time on something that is essentially irrelevant. That,
Well, we have to have MVP Barry Spooble, Mark Bailey again for 10 minutes. That's what we have to have.
I don't, like, that's one of those things that, like, one of the best parts about being in the arena was not having to listen to that commentary until I got home and was like, all right. Like, but I just don't, like, I appreciate that I am not someone who thinks that big men standing there and looking tough is appealing. Like, that's not what I'm here for in wrestling. And I get that other people do. Like, I get that that's a thing. Sure. Like, fucking dudes love to see a strong, tall guy who doesn't sell and looks tough. Like, that's their, like, fucking jerk off fantasy or whatever. Good for you. Sure. But, like, MVP is out there fucking burying the guy. And I don't see how you don't see that that's happening. And I also don't understand, like, Danielson is literally feeding him lines on what they want him to say, and he's like, Speedball sucks. That's terrible. He can, Shelton can get out of that easily. Shelton's not gonna have a problem with that easily. Well, you just made Shelton look like shit, didn't you? Like, Shelton can beat him easily. Then why are we sitting here for a 15-minute match? Like, why am I sitting in, I don't get it. I don't think he adds a lot. I haven't missed him on commentary. I was terrified he was going to be on commentary last night during the Gauntlet, and I was really grateful that he wasn't. But it just, it continues to boggle me. The Hurt Syndicate on these pay-per-views boggles me. Our friend Aaron Rutkowski brought up a good point that it feels contractual. It feels like they have a thing in their contract that they have to have a pay-per-view match and like be in a featured spot on a pay-per-view. And that's why we end up with these situations where like they're usually the weakest part of every pay-per-view is the Hurt Syndicate. Like, I don't know. I don't want to hit too much on it, but it's part of that overall thing of like, what's the point of this?
Yeah, it's like a malaise to so much stuff. That's why, it doesn't have any energy. And I think you can feel that with the crowds as well. Like, I haven't felt like any of the recent pay-per-views have had significant energy. And there's no reason to.
No, you brought Speedball and Kevin Knight in, and they made it, like, they had an impact. Like, they kind of were a jolt of, like, energy to the TV when they first came in. And then you stuck them in a feud. Same with Ricochet. Like, once he turned heel and had that feud with Swerve, it was like a jolt of energy. Like, wow, this is a new person with a new dynamic that we haven't had for a while. Like, what's this going to be like? And then you stick them in a feud with guys, and you beat them over and over again. And it's like, well, okay, now there's that energy's gone, and whatever they brought to the show isn't what it was. And it's, again, it doesn't, I'm not saying like in a vacuum, that's not a big deal, but you add all of these things together, and that's kind of what adds to the sort of like, opinion that is sort of affecting me these days, I guess.
Yeah. Let's knock on a couple more subjects. What have you thought of the women's tag tournament so far?
Fine. Like, I appreciate I appreciate that all of these women are being given TV time. I like the various combinations. I like the dynamics at play, but it's hard not to see it as Tony and Mina beating Marina and Megan in the final. Like, that's clearly what it's going towards. And even whatever stipulation that they decide to add to these semifinals isn't going to be like, okay, like, it's fine. I can't say it's really setting me on fire.
Yeah, it's kind of dusted off between different shows as well, and lack of structure, and
it feels like an afterthought. It's like they bring it back up again when they need to put a women's match on the card.
Yeah, that's literally what it felt like this week. It was like, I can't do just one, so I'm just going to throw them all on and find a weird step. No, I think it's obviously it's very much a vehicle for Tony and Mina to be kind of the first ones, and it did play well into Blood and Guts, which was, I thought the match was better than the men's match.
Yes.
I think that putting it first was the right decision because, first on a traditional AEW show, 2-hour show, or even on like this case, because it's a 3-hour special, that first slot is more important than the last slot. Yeah. As much as people say, the main event. Well, the main event, we've had... God, if you go back through Dynamite history, I'm sure you can find some incredible main events, but you won't find so many opening quarters. And women have only opened kind of less than, 2 hands worth of shows properly.
We had Dustin Rhodes versus Nick Comoroto in a dog collar match was a main event on Dynamite. So I don't like... Let's everybody just calm down a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, the main event on Dynamite is the Open. So for them to get the Open... in the most part. So there's the odd exception. Like when they do the 3-hour crossover shows for Collision, it's 8 into 9.
Yep.
Depending on, sometimes they have like football games and stuff and they'll prioritize halftime, whichever. But in the majority of the time, because of the lead-in, and especially because Big Bang Theory currently is, other than Blood and Guts Week, it's kind of out-tracking Dynamite Current, which is their big concern. Then the lead-in becomes even more important. So it's like for them to get that spot was really, really strong. And they did a big male 18 to 49 number predominantly that normally corresponds to big women's matches as well as just the gimmick. In fact, last year I think the women's demos were up more than the men's demo for Blood and Guts. So that was a bit of a switch. So it's like, they did really well. They had some great focus on them, and then it's kind of like we're all back to normal. And that's probably the biggest problem with some of these gimmick matches is like the big matches happen, nothing really gets sold off it, and then off you go. But in terms of the tournament, that's the final. They did set them things up. That's where that match was quite useful. I guess, it's one of the things I just like to see have more focus. Yeah. And especially now that they're going into the C2, I think it not finishing before the C2 is
a mistake.
Yeah, because all the focus is going to be on that now. From whenever they announce those names, whenever he puts a list together.
I saw somebody today that was like, Tony's obviously known about who's going to be in the C2 for weeks. And I was like, yeah, okay. Just like last year.
And the year before.
Yeah, seriously.
The year before on Tuesday morning. Yeah, like, are we putting Swerve and Hangman in this?
Yeah. Seriously.
Funny. But yeah, and then the other one was, it's so weird in a way to feel this kind of thing when you have the reunion of the Elite. And I don't know. What did you think of that? So I didn't think the match was, anything special. I think it was pretty much what you expected. Probably could have done with going in between the two bloodbath matches in the middle, to be honest.
I think that would have been a better spot for it than where it landed, because I think if you went from Briscoe into the women's match, it might have been a little bit better. I thought what's usually funny is that I thought for the longest time that Tony Khan was very good at the placement of matches, and I feel like that's kind of fallen off. Like the last 6 months or so, I feel like the placement of some of these matches, it's like, what the fuck are we doing? But last night I felt like it was really obvious, and I don't know. The trios match was fine. And I feel bad saying that it was fine because obviously, it's a great match. And again, being in at the show on Wednesday, you just, again, you watch the Young Bucks and you're just very impressed by all the little things they do and all of the stuff that it was just they're very impressive. So to be like, oh, it was fine feels like a bad thing to say, but it was another one of those situations where, you saw the story beat coming and you've seen it coming for months at this point. And it was like, okay, it's, it's here now. We're going to get there. I think Kenny's lack of anything in this hasn't helped it at all. Right. Because, you have no idea what he's feeling or what he's thinking. Jurassic Express are just kind of there as catalysts kind of, but not really involved. It's just an odd, the story's been about Don Callis. The story's been about Don Callis. He's the one who talks. He's the one who discusses what he's the one who expresses what he wants. Yes, the Young Bucks have to make a decision, but Don Callis is the one with agency. He's the one with here's the pyro, here's the intro, here's the other stuff, right? Everybody else is just sort of standing around. Where I feel like if you'd had Kenny involved in this in some way, trying to get them to be in a team with him, then maybe it might have been at least a little bit interesting. I don't know. If this is what, I feel like I've been too harsh. This is where, I felt bad about the last time where I was like, Kenny just decided to come back from Japan and playing video games. The guy almost died. I feel bad. The guy almost died, right? He's a young, healthy man. I am repentant. But this is I'm not the bitch that I pretend to be. He's a young, healthy man who's been at the peak of he's had peak physical whatever. He's never had an injury that hasn't been directly related to the physical work that he does. And he almost died for no reason other than just a quirk of his body. That's terrifying for anybody. And emotionally, if that's had an impact on him and the way he's approached his work, I certainly can't blame him for that, even if it's not necessarily what I want to watch him do on television, right? That's where I feel selfish, where I'm the guy fucking almost died and I'm bitching about the fact that he doesn't want to do things that I want him to do on TV, right?
But it's not just that, is it? It's the way they use him. So he comes back on Wednesday, they advertise it as the big thing for your Boston show.
They did.
And then he gets beat up in 2 minutes.
Didn't say anything, ran off stage and did a backstage pre-tape that nobody in the stadium could hear or the arena could really hear or understand.
And I just looked at that and I thought, you have such limited time with this guy, right? I think everybody's kind of aware of that now. And, I know he talks about, don't worry about my health and stuff, but people obviously do. And it's you have to make the most out of him. And is that making the most out of him? He's kind of the opposite to Adam Copeland, isn't it? Because, Adam Copeland comes back, gets a big return pop, clears everyone out, wins a match, and then goes off again. Kenny just gets beat up.
Yeah. Gets beat up, gets beat up, doesn't get to talk, doesn't really say anything, has no agency, is permanently the damsel in distress. You expect him to just be tied to a railroad track somewhere every time. And that's part of it for me where I'm again, if that's what he wants to do, then okay. But at the same time, I'm kind of I don't know, it's fine. It's fine.
It's funny because I think this is one that they could have dragged out a little bit more. Like it's the opposite of some of the others. So it felt like they dragged it out, and then they sped it up like far too quick. And then coming on this show, because of the other angles I did, it just didn't mean as much. And then it's like, okay, so they're going to do things with the Don Callis family, and then you're like, okay, so then what do you do? You know, like, you're going to go for the trios titles.
Right, they're back together. Like, what does this mean?
Yeah, are you going to put Paige back in the faction so we can stand behind them for another fucking 6 years? I'm sorry, I have no interest in that. I know I should, but I don't, because it's like, well, it's an easy fit for them, sure.
If they just made up to have, like, to get the Bucks back to being baby faces, and they kind of go their separate ways, like, I'm fine with that too. Like, I don't need them, like, they could be, you know,
they're not going to do that. It's their anniversary, isn't it? Was it 10-year anniversary?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, so they're not going to do that. They're going to, do the thing around New Year, and it's like, there's a part of me that's, I've always said, and I've said this to, people close to this one, is that AEW needs to have more of its people most representative of it as baby faces in these coming years, because, the importance of being a babyface company has never been greater than it is now. Perception is a huge part of this now.
Yeah.
Especially with the way people consume things and the way with social media and everything else. And so having, people that associate with AEW, and especially the Elite, because, it's in the name.
Yep.
As either unimportant or as heels, I thought that was something they needed to move away from and kind of how they have that closure. So I thought that the turn needed to happen with the Bucks. And it certainly brought out something in them. I think they've had some fun with like some of the little kind of gimmicks and things that they've done over the last few months.
It's been some of the most enjoyable stuff. Like, along with the Moxley stuff, it's been some of the most enjoyable stuff on the shows for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's opened them up to doing more media and stuff as well.
Yep.
We're going to credit Tunnel Talk for that, though.
Always.
Yes, we're crediting Tunnel Talk for that. They brought them back. Like,
such a good time on that interview.
Yeah, first non-AEW interview for so long. Why am I being sworn at?
I don't know. Producer Leah does not like this.
No, Producer Leah's swearing at me.
I tried to yell at the Young Bucks as they walked by us on Wednesday, remembered Leah from the Zoom, and they didn't seem to respond. So, it's now maybe they are heels.
I actually thought you said remember Leah from the zoo then.
Good times.
We're going to find out later why I was swore there. I don't even know. But no, it's like, it's kind of one of the things where they were building up well. I thought they were building up well, and it kind of just came to its conclusion. And I was just kind of, okay, that's it. And that was a weird feeling. And I get doing it there because, you think about when they came back in 2022 in Newark, and that was kind of a big moment, big emotional moment. In quite a difficult time for a lot of people in that company at the time. So I can get why you'd want to do it there. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. And that hurts me. I was like, why am I not feeling this? I've enjoyed, some of the little skits and things. And I've absolutely championed the babyface turn. And then I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at, is like, it's
right.
fine.
Let's get on to something that's not fine.
Oh, we made everybody wait fucking 55 minutes to get to this one. Yeah, they had to sit through it. And I'm not even going to timestamp it either, motherfuckers. You're going to sit through the whole goddamn thing. I'm just going to be like, full gear thoughts.
Look, you're all coming for this. We know it. It's all right. Whether you love us or you hate us.
I was going to say, the haters are here for this too.
The haters are the ones tuning in first. They're like, download at 3 p.m. on my time on Tuesday. Like, hit that fucking button.
Let's go 4 speed. What did they not like? Let them go 4 crazy. Okay, so let's talk about this. Right?
What do you think we sound like in 4 speed? Because like,
I must sound like
I listen to Dave and Brian in like 2.6, and I can't listen to it at normal speed anymore.
I don't know how you do it. I
don't know.
I have a hard time listening to things sped up.
Really?
I feel like I miss nuances of people's pauses and stuff like that. But what can I tell you? All right. So main event was Samoa Joe versus Hangman in a steel cage. This went back to blood and guts and the idea that the ops kept interfering. So Hangman said, let's have a steel cage match. And Samoa Joe agreed. We had a promo, either, I don't remember if it was in the pre-show or the beginning of the other show, where Samoa Joe had a bunch of jobbers behind him. And now apparently there's an ops dojo. where they have like, dudes being taught to do ops stuff, but we've never gotten any indication as to what the ops are other than three guys.
Wait, so if the Seth Riders, the vision were the Seth Riders, then the Joe Dojo, is the Joe Dojo
the
some
Jojo?
sort of...
The Jojo?
The Jojo? The Jodo?
The Jojo?
I don't know. Is that like the Jodo
That's
Riders? Or is it like the House of Joe?
House of Joe.
Like House of Torture, yeah? Like House of Joe.
Like
Which one are we going with? Yeah.
I say House of Joe, clearly.
Okay, yeah, good. I do like that we have all these kind of overbearing field factions with interference, and yet, like, Tony can run propaganda around evil to find.
Don't you start. I'm going to start calling you Frasier.
He was right on that one. It's so funny. It's so funny. Anyway, yeah, so what are we calling him? House of Joe? Is that what we've called
House of Joe, I think it has to be.
Okay, cool. Right, let's do that.
House of Joe. So yes, the match started. The whole match went 16 minutes, and that included all of the interference. We had a fairly basic match. Joe bladed deep, which caused a bunch of people on the internet to lose their minds because a strong man with it. Yes, apparently. Yep. Oh my God! Look at how dope he looks. Yeah. Okay.
This is going to go well.
I told you I was going to make a bunch of men in 32 to 45 very angry, and it's going to happen. Y'all motherfuckers are way too easily impressed. The match itself was like nothing. Like there was like 5 moves in it. It was very minimal. There wasn't much to it. And then Shibata tried to interfere. He tried to climb the cage. It was an awkward moment where Eddie Kingston took forever to come out and there was some issue. And Shibata was sort of hung on the side of the cage. He tried to bring the title belt into the cage. Couldn't do it. Then there was a ref bump and Paul Turner went down. Hobbs came in. He broke the chain apart with his bare hands, which is fascinating. It was, I think, the only DC reference on the DC crossover show was Hobbs like breaking something apart with his bare hands. And then he got knocked out. Hangman managed to get rid of him somehow. And then Hook came out. Hangman got like 2 visual pins that the audience counted along with on Joe. Hook came out, tried to wake up Paul Turner, picked up the belt, hit Hangman with it. Hangman got knocked out. Joe put him in a muscle buster onto the belt. 1, 2, 3, show over. It was amazing because you got to watch a ton of people. They did a wide shot and there was just a ton of people running for the exits, which I was like, this bodes well. And then celebrating. Lights went out, and there's Swerve coming back very slowly. I love Swerve to death. He milked this entrance for every fucking thing it was worth. Took him for what felt like 45 minutes.
It was a little Adam Copeland, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a little Adam Copeland. Took him 45 minutes to get down to the ring. He has new theme music. He looked fantastic. Nana looked fantastic. They got down. He looked at Hangman. He cleaned house. Hangman cleaned house with Hook. Hook tried to hit Swerve, and then Hangman rescued him, and then the end shot was the 2 of them staring at Joe, and Joe as one. This sucked, Trish. And this is the part where this sucked. This is the part where we say she just didn't like it because Hangman lost. I want to make it clear at the front before you get started because I feel like you and I are going to disagree a little on this. I was fine with Hangman losing. Honestly, I was fine with Hangman losing. Like, I don't feel like you have to have these enormous reigns. I agree with people that are like, some of these title reigns are too long. I think they could benefit from shortening them up a little bit. I think this one of Hangman's reigns was better than his first one. Like, do I think that he suffered from, this is where we're going to disagree on this, I knew it. I do think he suffered from not being the main character as much as I would have liked, but I also didn't feel like he was the intentional afterthought that he was in 2022. So I wasn't as infuriated by this reign. I thought he acquitted himself well. I thought he did, my overall impression is better, right? But the ending of this was shitty. It wasn't good. It was a short match where nothing happened. You have a steel cage where it fucking makes no difference because everybody interferes anyway, which is some of the biggest garbages, crappiest tropes. Just don't do that if that's going to be the case. If you want dudes to interfere, just have a regular fucking match. The match centered around goddamn fucking Hook, who cannot buy an audience reaction. Nobody gives a flying fuck about this kid. They don't give a shit about this kid. He came out on the pre-show to fucking crickets. okay? Whatever intrigue they have with him is gone. And I am somebody who is always virulent when people are like, oh, so-and-so's this, so-and-so's that. I will never, ever count out a wrestler in their 20s, okay? There's always an opportunity for these guys to turn it around and these people to figure it out. And I'm never going to say so-and-so sucks and should never be in wrestling. I'm never going to do that. But at this moment in time, there is nothing about Hook that says that he needs to be in the main event scene. He has no charisma. He has negative charisma. He cannot wrestle. The audience doesn't give a fuck. The only way they have ever been able to get people to care about him is by having him stand next to people who are more over than he is. Okay? They did it with fucking Orange Cassidy. They did it with Danhausen was the first one. They did it with Team fucking Taz and Ricky Starks, God bless his soul. He's dead now, but that's, now Ricky Saints lives. So, and now they've done it with Eddie Kingston. And now they're going to fucking do it with Samoa Joe and Hangman. And I understand that the goal here is that you want to turn Hook into Wheeler Yuta, right? For all the people shit on Wheeler Yuta, the fucking guy has heat like you wouldn't believe, okay? Everybody fucking hates his guts. He shows up and they start screaming, fuck you, Yuta.
He's still not going anywhere.
And he's not going anywhere, right? But the audience still gives a fuck about him, which they do fucking not about fucking Hook. So you're going to put Hook in this heel faction, and you're going to do this, and you effectively made Hangman look like a chump, which again,
proper geek.
Fine. I'm not totally opposed to this. Sometimes it happens. But for this guy who's nothing, what are we doing here? What are we doing here with this? What, I just don't understand this at all. This was just bad. Regardless of who won and who lost, if it had been fucking Adam Copeland losing the belt this way, I would have said this fucking sucked. This was overbooked WWE type bullshit that made no sense, that was extremely stupid, and was kind of a fuck you to an audience who sat there from 7 p.m. Eastern for 5.5 hours. And I'm not going to be somebody who does that thing about AEW pay-per-views are too long, because I'm not going to take my specific individual experience and blanket apply it to the entire world. I appreciate that not everybody feels that, but it's a late night, right? To have to sit through all of that for that fucking finish. Come on. It wasn't good. And yes, Swerve is back, but somebody said in our Discord today, it's like fucking dangling keys. Could you imagine if they didn't have Swerve come back, how fucking furious everybody would have been?
Well,
it would have been it would have been like Full Gear 2 years ago, where MJF and fucking Jay White just fucking sucked. I don't know. And then you have the fucking positivity police. Let's wait and see how it plays out. We know how it's going to fucking play out. Not well, bitch, to quote Dorinda Medley. It's not going to play out well. I guess this is one of those things where I will throw a Real Housewives reference in there. But, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at on this, Trish. It wasn't good. Don't fucking fuck with me and tell me it's good. And I don't want to hear this oh, it's okay because, I'm going to let you talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about the complicated factors bringing Swerve and Hangman together at this point, if you're not going to do anything with them, because I think that's a big piece of this. But, I don't want to hear this, oh, it's he's just going to mow through Hook on his way back to Samoa Joe. Yeah, right. Because based on how Hook has been booked, and again, forget everything you hear about backstage and all that bullshit. Look at the fucking TV. Hook has never been booked that way, okay? He is not going to just get laid down, mowed over for fucking Hangman. It's not happening. Hook is clearly one of Tony Khan's priority projects. This is where he puts his time and his energy, okay? He's going to fucking put Hook ahead of Hangman at this point, and I'm going to be, you just say that because it's Hangman. Fuck you!
Okay. Yeah, let's just start with the execution, because the execution is one of the biggest problems with everything that they've done here.
Yeah.
So if you're aiming for the shock turn, well, you definitely got that. However, you didn't build to it.
Nope.
You didn't build Samoa Joe up to be any sort of threat. The idea that the big interference spots and everything like that and doing all this thing protects Hangman, does it? Fuck. He looked like a fucking geek. You did the whole thing where he's like, oh, I'm going to ruin your life. Right, which was the line that he introduced all the way back in, which to me, when they did that, I thought it was a real simple kind of structure, right? So automatically that Tommy Joe was going to turn heel. And when you turn heel, you're going to do that and you're doing a gimmick. And the only thing I was annoyed about is I didn't realise it was a steel cage match, because it's a line straight out of the Swerve Strickland stuff. So obviously the gimmick was going to be a steel cage match.
Right.
And then, I thought that this was an opportunity for him to get some sort of statement win, big thing going on, big gimmick match, before you then have whatever you're going to do at World's End or whatever you're going to do with Max.
Right.
Because you haven't done that. And they built in, the little Hook thing, so they had him, tap to, Joe quite quickly in the four-way and in the tag. So they were building things in, and they've stuck a couple of little things in promos and in promo packages. But you haven't done enough. And you built the build around, would Hangman be, the Hangman that we saw during the Swerve Strickland match, right? That was your immediate last week build. It wasn't about, is Joe a threat? Is there anything going to happen with the Ops? It was just like,
it's like, what's Hangman going to do in the cage?
Yeah, what's he going to do in the cage? And the way that you structured it, by doing like the shortest pay-per-view match, world title defense in history for the men's world championship, was to just say, we're just going to have a standard cage match, and we're going to put 2 other matches on the show that are incredibly bloody and have more action,
and more violent.
Yeah, they're more action, more violent, because they have more access to things and longer time periods to do so. So you have the end of this thing, and you're going to do the shock thing, but you can't even give in 25 minutes. You can't even do something properly with it. You've got to do this WWE style bullshit interference finish, which is the worst finish they've ever done to any AEW men's world title program. I was trying to think about this earlier, and I can't think of one. I can't think of one where you haven't built anything up, like you haven't done anything to make it feel important, and then you just do this finish in this match where you obviously don't give a shit about it in the way that you structured it. 11 minutes, and then it's like, oh, and here comes the interference, and here comes the interference, and here comes the interference. And the problem with it is, also with the structure is that you had the story going in where you could sell, like, Hangman's, taking all this damage from the Ops, he's taking this damage from Hobbs, but he overcame it by being like this crazy demon, right? That's what he did. And he's Shibata, and he did the thing with the shoe. And, because he actually harms his storytelling sometimes, that he's one of the few fucking people on this roster that actually bothers to sell when he's actually hurt or, supposed to. With everyone else, just, like, something happens and the next week is like, oh, I'm fine. I've been on fire, I'm fine. I know Darby did this, and that's not the one I'm referring to. But it's like, oh, we're in blood and guts, and we're fine. No one sells fucking anything, so he actually gets punished in a way by selling things, but they don't bring enough attention to it. So then you get this thing where he also has managed to kind of get all these things. Look how many things he broke through with the MJF match, right? You have all those things that happened in this match, and actually, no, he managed to overcome them and turn the tables and do that, right? It's smart babyface. Yeah. And I think that the idea was to sell, like, oh, he was rash because he challenged with the cage, obviously hook lowered the cage, he fell into his trap. But that's not the story you told. No, and it's very funny listening to Tony Khan at the press conference, and I'm like, and he's like, oh, and Joe's got this history with Swerve, and he's got this history with Hangman. It's like, nobody gives a fuck about the history that either of them have with Samoa Joe. Like, don't fucking lie to me. Like, nobody gives a fuck. And I get it. Like, Joe's obviously like a bit of a cult figure, especially for a certain age group. I find that
32 to 45.
Yeah, but it's really about the same thing for me. But with Danielson, so I don't feel that same attachment, even though I grew up in that same period, right? Like, I went to these shows. I had the Kabashi Joe DVD and whatever, but I don't feel the same level of, oh, but he deserves it. And I'm like, man, if this company could get past he deserves it title reigns, we'd be a fucking lot better off.
It's such bullshit because, again, like, I keep going back to what Tunnel Talk says about Joe. If you have no knowledge of Joe outside of AEW, he doesn't even belong in the main event scene. Like, there's nothing, like he already had one title run that was completely out of nowhere and, like, clearly political, and, like, obviously, like, he phoned it in, it felt like, right? Mm-hmm. Like, everyone, he has this history with Swerve and Hangman. He was the third wheel in that fucking when he was at the title. Nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, and they're going to try and get away with this, but he's going to be the third or maybe the fourth wheel. There you go. Yeah, that's true. So in this, maybe the fifth wheel, actually, with what they'll do there. But it's like, okay, so you've had Hangman walk through MJF and everything that he did, right? You had him walk through all the stuff with the Death Riders and Moxley. And now, like, he takes one belt shot from Hook and a muscle
buster. Of all people.
And I've got to believe this. And I've got to think that this is a good ending to, a title reign that people anticipated for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, they wait, like, why are people angry about it? Like, people are angry about it because they waited so long and then you fucked it up. Let's talk about the Swerve Hangman dynamic before we get on to Hangman's reign in total, please. Because I'll start and I won't stop.
So my thing with this is, like, I keep going back to, like, what they were talking about before All In, and Ospreay's trying to get Swerve and Hangman together and trying to get them on the same page so they can take out the Death Riders. And the concept from MJF and everybody else is you're playing with fire. You don't want these guys to team up. If these guys team up, they're going to become so dangerous that nobody's going to be able to stop them, right? So now you have a situation where, okay, are they going to team up? We don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. It's certainly possible that they could go their separate ways. But if they are going to team up, where are we going to have that danger, or are we going to be fucking doing 10 minutes in the ring with Hook? Like, and Samoa Joe, who, God love him, has not been someone that they've presented as, like, being particularly lethal or dangerous. You know, like, we're going to go win the fucking tag belts off of Crope and Christian? Like, where's that lethality going? And like, what is that turn into?
You know, like he always likes to go back to his previous plans, right? So yeah, let's go to the tag titles. You know, that's where you were supposed to go this summer. We turned him babyface thinking he was going to be a tag champion. And you know, thank God to the fans that, you know, really got behind him because they forced his hand.
Yeah.
They forced his hand. But
I don't know. I just feel, for me, that's one of those things where it's like, I'm fine if you want to put these guys together, but you sold me this. You sold me that this would be a huge game changer if they did. And now you've got to put them together. Now, where's the game changer? I don't want to see any fucking, 20-minute 50-50 matches with Hook. Like, I don't want to see any, like, you know what I mean? These guys should fucking mow those guys down in 5 minutes together. And they're not gonna, and that's gonna piss me off even more. I don't want to get pre-mad, but you know what I mean. Like, if you don't do that, then what did you set all this shit up for? Why did you have everybody talking about this? If MJF comes back and beats them both in the same ring, like, what is that gonna do for anybody? Like, fucking nothing.
The biggest question is why did that belt come off Hangman when they're probably going to do a multi-man at the next pay-per-view, right? And it's a question of, so you were going to do the Swerve and Hangman dynamic in that. And now you're going to do it, but it's now less interesting in that way because Paige doesn't have the belt. So you took away something that people really wanted to see in that reign, and you just, for what? We don't really know. But it's like, the hard bit about that is that you take away Paige's immediacy in terms of revenge. So some of that moves on to Swerve. Like when they do that closing and he clears everybody out, you move some of that kind of babyface kind of thing onto Swerve. So then it's like it's more difficult for Paige, which is what they kind of hope for, because you're not going to put the belt back on him. You want that kind of thing to move away from him. So you do that. I think there's an element of, with Swerve with the incredibly long entrance and the music change and that sort of thing, is that you have to think, okay, how long is he staying babyface for? Right. Because this feels like something where they're going to move some point in that direction. And then when you do, you also have the added complication is, can you do that if MJF's back and around the title picture? Because are you going to end up the same situation that Paige found himself in with Jon Moxley last year where, you're going to be in this new character, but there's going to be someone presented over you? Right. So I think there's lots of questions to come out of that. I don't think people are as excited about it now as they would have been because of what they did. And maybe that will change with time. But I think there's huge risks. And maybe, I don't know. I trust them in terms of what they're going to do with their story, right? I trust in terms of the way they're going to present themselves.
Yes.
But that's no different. It's, people outperforming their booking and in order to break out and trying to get through the ceiling is standard, isn't it, right? But this is all a little bit unnecessary to shake things up. And they're doing it in a way because, let's be honest, you failed in booking the second title reign for Hangman Page. And, when we did that episode, like the last one we did on AEW just after All Out, and I spoke about the Death Riders kind of still being the top heel group and scouring the show and stuff. And I thought that they presented him really well for the first 5 weeks, right? So you had the Moxie stuff, you had the MJF stuff. They presented him beginning and end of shows. He was closing shows, that sort of thing. I think his media output's been really, really good, actually. Really strong.
Very much so.
Credit to him for standing up for his believing, because not everyone in the company is always fond of of the way kind of Hangman champion stuff, but he does. And then his media, I think he sold AEW better than most people ever have in terms of being live ticket offering, etc. on some of those media things the last few weeks. But it's like they started him out really well. We got 5 weeks where everyone was kind of convinced they were actually going to finally treat him as the top guy, and there was people briefing from inside. He's going to treat him as a top guy this time. He's not going to be secondary, because that's what we spoke about at the very start, right? You cannot. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to be honest. I don't give a fuck about the length of the reign. Right?
Agreed.
I don't think it makes any fucking difference whatsoever. People like to bring up the Stone Cold reigns, and I'm like, yeah, it didn't make any difference how short his reigns was, and he was back on the chase, because he was the top fucking guy, and he was presented as the top fucking guy. So it doesn't make any fucking difference whether he had a month-long reign or not, because he's still the top guy, right? Hangman was presented as the top guy for 5 weeks, and then he went back to Jon Moxley. And it was pretty amazing, because you think about it at the time when they did it. So he goes and sets like an 18-month long, US collision record, right? And has the biggest quarter hour in a year on TV. And then literally that's when they go, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take the first main event of your babyface world title run and we're going to make it the semi-main event because we need to prioritize Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley. And that's not to any disrespect to Moxley or to Will Ospreay. But obviously setting up Wembley for Will Ospreay is more important to them than this Hangman Page title reign. And Jon Moxley is their number one guy, right? So that was a really bad omen. And it was a mistake. Looking back in hindsight, having MJF pin Hangman with no kind of story play out in that one, that was a really bad mistake. Looks worse in hindsight now. There are so many things that look worse in hindsight because they did them and then you thought, oh, okay, that might come back around and it doesn't, right? So then you can judge it now in totality. And then the same thing you had Ricochet involved and then you didn't use him. And the burning thing angle was just a piece of shit. So then, okay, you do the MJF match, obviously much more popular in a building than it was online. But he achieved what it should do. He was more over coming out than he was coming in. And then it was like, oh, we don't know what to do with him. And because we don't know what to do with him, and we've elevated the Death Riders back to the top of the heel step card, and we can't have him work with the Death Riders because he just has, he naturally is going to come secondary. And then actually we're going to just reinforce that, right? So we're going to really focus on Mox and Darby, and we're going to really focus on FTR and Cope and Christian for All Out. And then he's basically just going to steal the main event. You know, you're going to come out and we're going to do, best quarter hours of the thing. And he has had the best quarter hour record all the way through this reign. This is the worst thing. It's like last time you could say he didn't have the numbers of CM Punk. Well, this time he's had the best numbers of anyone and we've still done this. So fucking what do numbers make for you? Same with like attendance and they're like, oh, it's not gone through the roof. Yeah, but you look down that list of every show that's actually been successful during this period and then once he's fucking been advertised for, you go out and wrestle the Greensboro number like the other week and it's like, yeah, thanks Hangman, now fuck off. It's like, yeah, you go from 3,000 to 5,000 tickets, you bail out blood and guts because none of the national announcers did. And it's like, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, we don't give a shit. But it's like, you had nothing planned for him. So instead of the focus being, actually, we need to make sure this reign is important and that we secure him as a top guy and all that bullshit about Moxley made this guy all in. Well, you don't make anybody unless you follow up, right? And so then it's just a moment. So then it ends up as Bryan Danielson WrestleMania 30 rather than actually making the guy. And it's like, oh, we don't have anything for him. So we're going to do the Carl Fletcher thing, and Fletcher stepped up, and and they topped the quarters, and they main evented that show, and we're going to do that all-out show, and it's going to do 140,000 buys, massively up on All Out and Wrestle Dream the previous year at 103, and you can use either figure if you don't want to use All Out because Wrestle Dream was the same number, so if you want to count the number of weeks, it's the same thing, and you're going to see off WWE, and then you know what we're going to do? We have nothing for you. Because we've got all these heels and people wrapped up in things and we don't want to beat them or we don't want to take them out of stories and you're not the priority. That's what they did. It was kind of like, oh, we've got this and we've got that and what's left for Hangman? That's not the way you book a top guy because they didn't believe in him as a top guy and push him as a top guy. And it's worse because they used the fucking main character shit all over TV and I told you that was a bad idea. Every time Max said it, I told you it was a bad idea because it brings with it expectations. And when you don't live up to those expectations, this is what happens. And he'll get the blame for it. And I told you that as well when we did the get up and do it again tomorrow. So he'll get the blame for whatever happens in this reign. And fucking hell, you can see it today, he is. But it's like, you didn't book for him. You didn't present him. You then go on to the next bit where you present Mox and Darby way over him. And then at Wrestle Dream, you have him main event over him. Like the first men's singles match to main event over a world title match with no protection whatsoever. Not a kayfabe fucking reason, not a gimmick, lights out, nothing. You had nothing. So then you just did that and you made him look like a fucking geek. And then you do this story where it's bound to, if you take and then he has to get revenge and he's not going to get revenge. So it's like, that's even more of a geek. And you do this over a period of time. Obviously the TV rating stuff changes. Previous to then, the ratings were pretty good coming through. Tony spoke about it the other day. I was good, going up until the end of quarter 3 for this year. So it's like, he'll get the blame for that. And it's like, but they're his numbers. Quarter 4 is going to be up on average attendance from last year. First time Q4 has ever been up in AEW for ticket sales. Yeah, you can guess where that's going to go. So it's like, none of it makes much sense. Like, you didn't get behind him and you didn't position him well and you kept him as secondary to Jon Moxley and you put that heel group in, which made no fucking sense because they're turning Moxley face. So why the fuck did he take out Ospreay? You could have done that with the Don Callis family and it immediately plays in. but no, we can't do that because that's actually sensible. But it's like, it was all very rushed. And then it's like, by the time they did that with Wrestle Dream, where they were pretty much, we're going to put you underneath Mox again, you know, at that point, and then you're going up against Tony Khan's statements, right? So when he says stuff like, you know, and make sure that he had the Mox Copeland match at Revolution, and he says something like the world title always goes on last. Well, it doesn't go on last when it's on Adam Page. So what have you told your fans? What have you told your audience? You told them he's secondary. That's the one thing we ask you not to fucking do. I don't care if it was a month. I don't care if it was 6 months. I don't care if it was a year. We ask you not to make him secondary, and that's what you've done. And at this point, you know, you come to accept it. You come to say you're never going to treat him as the top guy, and that's fine. You know, not everybody gets to be, but he can be so much more. And it annoyed me when I hear stuff like, you know, Dave Meltzer saying, you know, that, you know, the next year could be pretty much, this was a few months ago, based on his success. And it's like, you can't fucking do that when every sucking cycle you take his legs out from under him. It's fucking impossible. Like, he doesn't get the chance to even demonstrate what he can do in that role because you don't let him do it. And then it gets to this point where it's like, rather than actually making guys for him or making solutions, and it's like, what we don't do is we just go, haven't got anybody. It's an unfortunate situation. All these people are out of injured. There's no credible opponents. If I get one more message with the word credible, I'm going to fucking throw my phone. Like, he has no credible opponents. He's got no credible opponents because you've not fucking built anybody.
Right.
Are you telling me that you couldn't have built anybody? Are you telling me that you couldn't have done a Ricochet thing? You couldn't have done a Mark Briscoe TV match after you did that and you pulled it away?
Right.
Are you telling me that you couldn't have done something with Okada and Takeshita, a multi-man, even if you don't want to fucking pin them because they're, you know, Japan commitments? Are you telling me you couldn't do something with Pat? You couldn't do something with Orange Cassidy when he returned? Because it's got to be fucking better than what he's done since he's returned.
Yeah,
You're telling me you couldn't do something with Eddie Kingston? Why does it have to be heels? We couldn't do a Roosh match? You know, who else is on my list? We couldn't do something with Kenny because actually, you know, when we need side quests, because World Championships, here's a spoiler, need side quests in the middle because actually the only things that people remember are the beginning and the end and then who challenged them to them. So, you know, you need side quests. And no, we're not going to do a side quest and we're not going to include the Kenny thing. You know what we're going to do is we're going to box it. We're going to box that Mark Briscoe thing off as well. We're not going to allow him to have any of that character development or them second things that, you know, give him more time on the show. No, let's just not bother because we don't fucking care. And then it's like, all right, so they're like, oh, we have a lack of opponents and that's what makes, you know, and so he's got no credible opponents so we need to end it here. And I'm like, what the fuck has that got to do with anything? John Moxley, right? Their only babyface run that they've actually managed to execute well in full. And I'll talk about the Strickland one in a bit. And it's like, who did he face in that run?
Yeah.
Jake Hager, Brody Lee, Brian Cage, MJF, Lance Archer, Eddie Kingston. That was it. And then Kenny Omega finished it, right? Nobody remembers half those matches. It doesn't fucking matter because he was presented as the fucking guy. And the end meant something. They built it up. It was the biggest match in Dynamite history. It had a big shock ending. But guess what? He was a top fucking guy, not a 40 fucking 6-year-old who's getting another you deserve it title reign because you can't come up with anything better. And I thought Joe sold well for him in the build at times. You know, but you've just undone it, haven't you? It doesn't make anything. So it's like, that's the end. That's what people thought in the end. Like, what's that worth? It's worth fuck all. There's no worth to that. There's no value. You haven't made anything. You could have elevated someone out of it. No, we can't do that because everyone must stick in the same fucking spots. It's like we don't elevate anybody. No, we can't do that. We can't have them face any of these ones because they're in this match and they're in that match and Ricochet's got to babysit the hurt children. And like,
well, that's
like,
just it. Like, you want this to be a transitional. You want this to be a transitional reign? Fine. You want to have. Why is Joe the only person who can be a transitional champion? You couldn't put fucking even Darby Allin in there for this? Right? Fletcher couldn't have done something like this? Like, why does it have to be fucking Samoa Joe? Like, I get that we, like, jerk off at night to 2005 Ring of Honor, but, like, there's got to be somebody else backstage.
Yeah, and so you can do your transition onto MJF or whatever the fuck else you're going to do, but it's like, you know, you have 5 things that you can do this title round. Side quests, didn't do it. That's what saved Saw's title reign, you know. People don't remember him being secondary to John Moxley in the first part of his title reign. And it doesn't actually miss my understanding that, you know, he faced Christian Cage in the semi-main event of Double or Nothing, and he would have been in the semi-main event at Forbidden Door if Will Ospreay hadn't stood in. So that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But people don't remember, they remember the side quest with Hangman, right? They remember the match with Bryan Danielson and the fact that it was in the stage of Wembley. He had been built up for Wembley. And then they also incorporate the all-out match because that's kind of built into it. There's none of that here. So you don't have the payoff like you did with the Moxie match. You don't have the payoff in Moxie Omega match. You don't have the payoff that you had with Swerve and Danielson. So you don't have any of that. So you don't have the ending. Yeah, you have the beginning, you don't have the ending. And the ending will mean much more. I think Fraser, we talked about Fraser on our Discord, and he brought up the Goto-Zack match back in June, and how flat the Goto finish was to that reign, and how it kind of makes you think less of the reign in some ways. Even though Goto was presented far more demand than Hangman was in this one. But it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, when you don't get the end right, and, you know, if he was to recover that belt in a month, and then carries on with the reign, he's got the big opponents, then maybe... Something tells me that's not happening. Yeah. So at this point,
we know it's not happening.
So
like, people want to believe that it's happening. It's not happening.
Yeah. So then you lose that, right? So you lost the end, and you didn't position them strongly during the reign. So you've lost that. You didn't have any side quests. So you've lost that. So it's like all those bits that make people feel important are not present. So, and you didn't achieve anything with it. And he actually comes out of it. And look, that's not to, there's people that absolutely enjoyed it, and great. You know, if you enjoyed it, there's plenty to enjoy. I thought the work was very good, actually. I think for what he had to do, you know, for him and Fletcher to drag that feud to the main event was a pretty big achievement in itself. I think his promo work's been good. His media work's been good. You know, I think he's tried to tell a story even here. And if there was more focus on it and more sense to it, then maybe people would have been more receptive to what it is, and it wouldn't feel so bad, but they haven't, because they haven't even made an attempt to. So then it ends up with that feeling of, like, I almost feel like he now needs to recover from the reign, and that shouldn't be the case. That's not what you should do with when you have a title reign and you make it somewhere like that. And I get all the baby faces are better on the chase bollocks, but he is bollocks, right? That just means because baby faces are harder to fucking book, right? It's harder to keep them hard, it's harder to book. This guy, if you give him the right stuff to work with, even if you don't, if you give him someone to work with, he can do more than most. And yet you don't give him the opportunity to. And that's going to frustrate people because it's been so long that they waited for it. And at this point, I'm just like, yeah, thank you for the build. I thought the build was excellent. You know, thank you to the fans that pushed everybody into it. Thank you for those 5 weeks. And then it was go fuck yourself. So yeah, go fuck yourself. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I just think that it's one of those things, and especially with the pay-per-view numbers he does. I noticed that people...
That is so strange to me.
I know that people are trying to play down the all-in number because no one actually bothered to correct their spreadsheets to the day's revised number of 158 for last year, and all-out numbers. But there has not been a run since 21-22 of how many we're on. All In, Forbidden Door, All Out, Wrestle Dream, you know, 4 pay-per-views in a row up, and it was the first time they've been up all year. You know, he continues, we'll see how this one goes, but at the current, he's the only world champion to ever be up like for like on all pay-per-views. And you can say, oh, it goes up and it goes down. Well, no, they were in a very much downward trend at the end of last year. They were still behind at the beginning of this year. He's had that run. We'll see how it goes now. You know, live attendance, there's a massive difference between the shows and who was advertised on and wasn't. In fact, the Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and what's the other one? I'm missing one. Indianapolis, he was not... Independence, he was not very, very late. But most of the shows that he weren't advertised on, for some reason, did very much worse than the shows he were. So we'll see how that trend continues as well. Obviously, Q4 they're paid for now. He's done that for him. But it's a shame. And I think he'll tell great stories coming out of it because he's Hangman Page, and that's what he does. And it's nice to have him working with Swerve, but they missed an opportunity. And to have a good guy, world champion, to have that babyface reign, that signature babyface reign, at a time where you need some good guys in the world, and they haven't done it. But
I mean, that's the AEW story. They miss an opportunity. They miss an opportunity. They miss an opportunity. They miss an opportunity. Like, there's a degree to which, you know, there are so many easy layups that just get missed so often, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why can't we get out of our own way with some of this stuff? Like, what's the situation going on that we think that some of these are good ideas? Again, it's Samoa Joe in 2026. And I appreciate that Samoa Joe is like foundational for people. And, you know, I'm so glad Joe can have this reign. Like, who gives a fuck?
He had his token fucking reign. It was last year when MJF wouldn't lose to anyone fucking else. Right. Why are we even bothering?
Like, why? Like, what? Well, like, that's just it. Like, why? Like, why are you allowing that to be a thing that you're fine with? Right?
Yep.
Like, why? Like, you shouldn't be fine with that. Again, you have so many talented people in this fucking company. and you're going fucking back to Samoa fucking Joe and Hook. Like, what? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense to anybody. Like, stop trying to make Hook happen. It's not, I don't know. Like, that's the frustrating part where you're like, we had that, like, everybody goes nuts over this picture and it's Ospreay, Swerve, and Hangman. And people went berserk for that photo. People went berserk for those three guys together. And it sucks that you lost Ospreay to injury. And it sucks that you lost Hangman to injury. Or, Swerve didn't even touch wood. But, like, your response is like Samoa Joe. Like, your response is Samoa Joe and Hook. And, like, that's going to be, like, your winter. Like, okay. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the buy rates for World's End will be huge. Like, I don't know. It's just...
Oh, it'll be up because they did so weak last year. That was one of them where...
It's the worst pay-per-view.
Yeah, but it's like... The reason why people are so disappointed is they bought into the fact... I told you, they should never have brought that main character stuff to TV. I always thought that was so dangerous because you don't believe in him in that. And if you present him on TV like you think you're going to present him like Cody Rhodes, then you have to. And if you don't, then people will blame him because they don't want to ever play the. We never want to blame.
Nobody ever wants to blame fucking Tony Khan.
So it is what
the Tony Khan defense squad is out in force always. Well, we have to do with this. We have to do this. We have to do that. Like, Jesus Christ, there's an adult fucking man. Like let him be responsible for the shit. And like, I also want to say, like, I get it. Like, the dude has to keep all of these people happy. He has to make sure that everybody is he wants these wrestlers to continue to work for him. And wrestlers are fucking crazy, right? Yeah. So keeping all of these disparate personalities happy and content and making sure they come back and they're not running off to WWE and they're not doing this and they're not doing that. I get that. That's a tough fucking job. I'm not trying to downplay the difficulty of that. But I think there's times where he makes these really obvious booking mistakes and people go ape shit nuts being like, no, it's fine. No, you can't blame him. Actually, it's this or actually it's that. Like, he's a human being just like everybody else. He's not fucking Vince McMahon, but he's also not fucking, St. Teresa either.
And, there's a tendency to be kind of hyperbolic. I was actually watching something on, this is just for Kaze, but I was watching a video on like Football Manager the other day, which is an awful game this year that should be much better after waiting to. And they're like, this is an institutional failure. And I thought, God, you're going to sound like that sometimes. I was just laughing at it going, yeah, that's exactly probably what we sound like sometimes. But at the end of the day, look, it's a disappointment. They didn't do what they should have done with it. Is it recoverable at some point? Yeah, but he has to, why should he have to keep recovering for their fuck-ups because they don't prioritise him in these key moments? Right. And, they've not done enough. And they're taking the easy way out and there's all these excuses and it's unfortunately coming from the company. And it's just like, if you actually have the guts to own up and say, look, we aren't going to do anything with him because we can't, or we don't value this title reign, or whatever it is, or they forced my hand, but actually I've got this booking plan and I'm going to do this, or I need I want to do something to jolt TV because I can't be bothered to find someone to put him in a program with and give him the opportunity to stretch his legs. Like, whatever, be honest about it, but instead we get excuses, and I think that's what's annoyed me more is the excuses over the last kind of week. The Hook thing, the Hook thing is weak. At the end of the day, Tony will always never give up on the people that he thinks are his own personal creations. And that's something that actually hurts Paige as well, is that he's not, one of Tony's creations.
Or a Ring of Honor 2005 veteran.
Yeah, you need to be one or the other, right? You got to come from WWE or Ring of Honor 2005. And that's the other part that just frustrates me in the long term is the thing I've never gotten, and I've said this a million times, but it still stands true, is like, you build your company, and the reason your company exists is because of how WWE treated CM Punk. That's a guy with 434-day title reign, but still secondary, by the way. Just to make that point around length of title reigns isn't the important bit of what we're talking about, and never was, because we talked about secondary from the fucking start. Bryan Danielson, self-explanatory, works on your team. How on earth? I don't know. Adam Copeland was never seen as the top guy. Fine, okay. John Moxley, same thing. It's the reason he's in your company. Chris Jericho, the guy that you started with. How are you building Samoa Joe? Fuck's sake, TNA couldn't even make him the top guy. So, how are you building your company around these people to fix other people's mistakes and then want to make somebody into a version of them yourself? Sting, same fucking thing.
Right.
Right. So your intent is to make this guy a version of them. Like, that's why people stop watching the other fucking thing. Like, I don't get it. I'm sure other people will be, oh, you're overreacting, and give it a month, come back to me. All right?
No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be the title back at World's End. It's going to be okay, sure. Maybe. Hey, listen, shit's changed before.
True.
Shit's changed before. World's End last year changed, so
True.
I think.
That would have been Hook too.
Yeah.
Funny of talking about Hook. That would have been Hook and Moxley. Isn't that funny? If you say they're never going to give up on Hook, they are never going to give up on Hook.
They're never going to give up on Hook.
But yeah, that's what it is. And I'm disappointed. I thought his work was good for what he had. I think he was much more confident this time than the previous reign. I think he was much more in control of things. Promo-wise, he was much more in control. He wasn't afraid to kind of get the crowd with him, which is really hard. And you don't see many babyfaces do that these days. People instead rely on doing stupider and stupider things. And that's not to say he can't do stupider things, because he absolutely can. But I thought he was creative with that. Even the kind of Phantom of the Opera thing with Tony Schiavone was very creative. The boot the boot up in the air thing was agile. So it's like he's very good at that and running a crowd up. But I don't buy into the thing that he could only be a chaser. I just think you can't tell me that he can or he can't be the top guy, because they've never tried with him. And we're still there.
Well, so he can only be a chaser is just an excuse. Like,
yeah, it is.
It's just
a Brian Danielson. It was the same music. It's the same Brian Danielson excuse. And that's the funny thing is a lot of people saying who were the ones protesting about Brian Danielson's treatment in WWE. Never fails to amaze me, that one. It's not just the booking. That's the way people talk too. Should we talk about something else very quickly?
Yeah. Let's move on off of this. We hope you enjoyed our, we don't do too many of these like immediate reaction shows.
Yeah, I hope you got what you came for. There you go.
Good times.
Good. There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you want to talk about next, Trish, to borrow a phrase from someone else?
Just a couple of quick things, I think. So, TNA. So
good old TNA.
Yeah, so I've seen some comparisons to TNA, for what they did with Paige here, and it's like, no, it's not quite TNA levels. We don't need to do that.
But TNA get carried away.
No, but TNA did their own thing. So he took the title off Mike Santana, and obviously I think the idea is to sell that as like a debut on a new network kind of show. Doesn't matter that it damages Mike Santana, and they've already done the chase thing with him, and they don't care about that. But anyway, so they do this thing, and the story comes out after a week of really bad, stupid press. The AMC have interest in them, and I found this really interesting because the understanding in many parts of the industry, including their competitors, was they were going Wednesday, 8 p.m, CW network.
Yep.
I think AEW were running with the kind of the idea that happens. I actually thought the placement of Blood and Guts on the same week as they came back was quite interesting. Obviously nothing happened, and I don't think anyone there can really, has any idea for sure. I asked somebody actually, and they said, no, I don't think so. But it was just an interesting placement. But it's like, so the CW obviously have been very vocal about NXT's ratings and the new Nielsen measurement.
Yep.
Do you think
there was a big article from Brandon Thurston this week in WrestleNomics about Data Plus panel, and they had some discussions and they had some talking points from CW.
Yeah, it's really good because you can actually look down and see which episodes performed similar under Big Data Plus panel to the old method, and you can see which ones, like the Halloween episode for Dynamite, which was much, much stronger under the old method than it was under this one. Blood and Guts was actually very close, which was quite surprising. But it's, so do you think that they got cold feet on this and you're kind of waiting to see how things kind of...
I think some of it boils down to, like, how far along was this deal? Like, how much of this was folks in TNA talking about it like it was done when it wasn't? Like, was there, like, a belief that WWE could step in and make it happen? Like, I think that's one of the unknown pieces that's kind of fascinating. I thought it was interesting that Carlos Silva, Mr. Hatman, was, back in the summer talking about how they were going to have a deal in October, and then he's back now talking about how they're going to have a deal to be on AMC in, by the end of the year. We'll see if that actually happens. The AMC deal is supposedly a revenue sharing deal.
That won't make them profitable. It's the same as AEW's deal when they first signed with Warner Brothers.
Right, which Tony Khan has said that if they hadn't changed that deal right before at the end of 2019 into 2020, they would have been closed during the They would have closed during the pandemic. It would have shut them down. So this is not like a huge revenue saving deal. It does seem like they have a bunch of people that are coming out of contract suddenly, and then you keep thinking back to that thing where Anthem supposedly gave them to the end of this year to become like at least marginally profitable, or they were going to cut them. So it's kind of interesting to see where this goes. It's another thing similar to stuff we talked about with AAA last time, where it's like, there's a lot of discussion around WWE and these other promotions, and then it kind of dies and sort of goes nowhere, right? Like,
they're still waiting on TV, though, aren't they, in the US? That's gone cold. Right. They built the Americana character on NXT in like a few minutes, the other week. So, what's their priority going to be for WWE? Do you get that contract for AAA, or do you try and force through an anti-competitive contract for TNA? And the other thing is, if you put that on a CW and you need to use crossover talent because either you've picked up too much TNA talent to make them viable elsewhere, or you feel like you need to put your own talent on there to bring the numbers up, do you then water down your own product? Is that what's happened in terms of the reason why NXT has been hit the hardest by this data change? But also is, hit the hardest really on years without it. So it's like, are you looking at that and it's a case of you've watered down the product because you've added this other one, similar to how AEW when they added Ring of Honor in 2022. And then Collision. Yeah, same thing.
Yep.
So are you then going to split your audience thinking basically like there's two NXTs? And then how does that affect your value of your premier brand in terms of your NXT deal with CW? So I think there's lots of considerations, and the fact that this has gone silent in terms of CW is more interesting than any other rumour in terms of around AMC or anything else.
Right.
And I think it's been an underplayed kind of story, or under-talked about story really in the last couple of weeks to see what happens with them. Because,
it's like...
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, it's like a lot of that other stuff we talked about when it came to like Peacock and WWE, losing that deal on for a Saturday Night Main Event. It's like everybody always wants to trumpet all of WWE's supposed successes and their associated supposed successes, but the shit that doesn't go well sort of disappears. Like, we just don't hear about it, right? Like, it just seems, I don't know. And NXT especially also has just become a repository for all of this shit that they had on other channels, like Speed and LFG and Evolve. Like, all of that shit is just dumped on NXT, and so you end
What's
up with...
What's below Evolve? That one's on it too. What's the ID?
WWE ID?
That's on there too. Yeah.
Right. Like, all of that shit is on NXT, and like you said, is this devaluing their brand in some way?
Oh, sorry. Now I froze there for a second. I was like, why have I frozen? Yeah, I think it could potentially debrand. Fucking hell. I can't devalue their brand for sure. That's such a Yorkshire thing, by the way. Can't speak. Can't speak. There you go. We should save that for a Tunnel Talk Christmas special in terms of the phrasings again this year.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Phrasing.
I'm sure Leah wants to go back to Blackpool.
She loves Blackpool. It's her special place.
That was a fun one. But yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting development just to kind of keep an eye on as they go forward. Cena's obviously...
We got brackets, Trish.
You got brackets?
Later, we fucking got brackets.
I really wanted to take the brackets and take every name and match them up to people in New Japan to make like Tanahashi's My Time Is Now tournament. Last Time Is Now tournament.
Who would be the Miz?
Yano.
That was funny. Did you
maybe
see that?
Sheamus
being injured, and they're putting the Miz back in. Everyone's like, "Who are they going to get to do it in this exciting way?" And it's just going to be fucking the Miz again. Like,
yeah. Well,
I don't know. I'm happy that they had a huge audience at the Garden. I'm happy that everybody in the Garden. Yeah, I was happy that that Grand Rapids show hit 2,400 tickets. Woo! They're moving hot.
Moving hot.
I'd be terrified if I looked at that Barclays number, but that's another situation. That's a story for another show between us.
That is absolutely. Just to finish on something nice, because I do want to talk about something nice.
Yes, talk about this nice thing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited about the Tokyo Dome show.
You are?
Yeah, so the Gifu show, the Tanahashi Homecoming show, when I finally got to see that really got me, because I thought Yoda Tsuji looked fantastic. I thought the fact that he managed... It's just that smile, man. It's just that smile. But yeah, the fact that the way that his promo was, he's like, leave New Japan to me. It's okay, to Tanahashi. And it was just like, oh, you are the guy. Like, for right now, you are the guy. You're exactly the guy I spoke about the other week. I was like, yeah, you figured it out. Your confidence. And for him to execute that match, I thought it was Tanahashi's best match of the year. But also, like, for him to work with someone limited, to work in that heel role, as the obstacle sort of thing with a hometown crowd, and then to have the kind of emotional bit at the end, and to do the promos and stuff. And, I just thought, yeah, you've worked it out, and I'm quite excited for that. And Takeshita's obviously settled in quite nicely to the kind of heel obstacle champion, with some small omissions because still a face in the West. But yeah, I thought he settled in quite well in that in the Goto match. Nice stern handshake from Goto at the end, by the way. That was quite funny. It was so funny. He was just like, yeah, I'm going to show I respect you. And Goto's just like, yeah, all right. It's like, fucking hell. It's like, oh my God. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that match. Looking forward to Tsuji getting a position. Love how much lucha stuff he's incorporating into his style, the way that kind of he's talking, just confidence and flair. And then, yeah, it's kind of really hitting me that, this is the last bit of Tanahashi now. And I think, when we went to Forbidden Door in 2023, it was kind of a sadness at the condition that Tanahashi was in.
Yeah.
Because, this was such a great babyface wrestler. One of the best wrestlers in the world for so long, and his body was just giving up on him. And, it's amazing what he's been able to do this year. I think I sort of started, he's had 36 matches this year, which is the most since 2006.
That's crazy.
And there were times this year where, they thought they had to shut him. They might need to try and find a way to shut him down, which is easier said than done, especially before the G1. And he's managed to come through that. And now it's kind of, as he goes to these last towns, last Ryogoku, last hometown show in Gifu, last Kobe Destruction, last whatever. It's and they're doing big business on this World Tag League tour, much bigger than last year. Because of it, because it's now become like this final tour, and it's kind of starting to make me emotional. And the idea of 45,000 people in the Tokyo Dome, I do think it'll be the biggest non-WWE show, at least for paid, next year. And you can kind of feel that anticipation now. And it doesn't solve all New Japan's problems. I'm not sure Aaron Wolf's going to solve all New Japan's problems. You see the railway picture? You see the railway?
Did.
Oh, and his hat, oh my God.
Interesting. Yeah.
We have people.
Tanahashi's all over TikTok. I'll tell you that. I'm getting constant Japanese TikTok Tanahashi.
That's the thing. It's funny because all year, their promotional elements have been really poor. They've been misadvertising people. They didn't do enough to promote Tanahashi's 100th win in the G1, that sort of thing. And yet, but for this, they have really stepped up. And their local promotion is really good. As you said, their social media promotion has been excellent. He's appeared on all sorts of TikTok kind of accounts of food and different things in Japan, like bloggers. And I was like, yeah, okay, you've proper figured this out. But, it's credit to him for selling out this show. And, I'm going to plug as well. So I've written something on this because I'm an idiot sometimes, right?
Occasionally.
And I realised that, okay, so we have, we're very lucky to have some very good New Japan sourcing. And then I realised, hang on a minute, I can get stuff on Okada. So I was like, okay, let's have a look at that. So, I've put something together of kind of a little bit of the timeline for each competitor that was kind of considered, when people heard about what and where, and the kind of difference between the press in the West and the press in the East, or the press that cover the East. So that's on the New Edition of Social Suplex newsletter, and I just want to thank everyone that's involved in that because it's been pretty hard to put together. I've struggled. I've got no concentration at the moment. I don't know what it is. Everything just takes longer. But they've had incredible patience with me, and we're putting it into a monthly kind of format in order to just take the strain off everybody a bit, but also means that we can have more people contribute. So even if you want to cover a certain area of the world, or an independent shows every other week, whatever it is, if there's anything you're interested in, please get in touch. We will be happy to have you on board and support you.
I have not read this article, but I can tell you from having talked through some of these things with Trish, it's pretty interesting, and I think there's some stuff that is going to be unique to you, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
Oh, yeah.
There's some stuff you won't be getting anywhere else.
Yeah. So, I'm pretty proud of this one, and I'm sure it'll be a conspiracy theory here as well. But, everything in it is sourced in somewhere. So there we are. All right. Yeah.
Good job.
Good job. Cool. I have nothing else to talk about now. I'm all out.
I mean, I could keep going, but I yelled enough, I think, for this week.
Yeah, well, it needed to happen. Yeah. So, and prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. Seriously, I would love nothing more than to do another "Hey, shit, we fucked up" episode, right?
Yep.
About this. That'd be great.
Yep.
That'd be so fucking great. I'd love to be like, hey, we were wrong or things changed.
Yep. Great. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Prove me wrong. I was going to say that last time with a question we got. That was going to be my last line, but so it still stands. Prove me wrong. So this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm going to do my close properly. I'm going to make sure the first thing I do is thank producer Leah. Yay!
I thought the first thing you were going to do was talk about how we are the 9th rated podcast on wrestling.
The National
Yeah.
AI.
The National AI has rated us the 9th most informative podcast of wrestling.
Ahead of Stephanie McMahon.
Ahead of Stephanie McMahon, folks.
Leah's getting pissed like that because she's just like, God, I was getting my fucking plug, and now you've just jumped it to do Stephanie McMahon shit.
I'll eat so much shit later.
Like, what's that song? The Queendom. What was that song? I'm all grown up now. I used to rap that when I was like 14.
Listen, I am ashamed to admit how much I was a fan of Stephanie McMahon.
Yes.
In like 2000. Like,
I met her. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Never mind. Anyway, we are produced by the wonderful Leah of Tunnel Talk.
Amazing.
I will get this closed right. You can listen to Tunnel Talk on our Social Suplex Network, wherever you listen to your podcasts, every Sunday, where they go through the character beats, stories, and the best and worst of all elite wrestling.
Just not this Sunday because they took the day off.
Wisely.
But they will be having a new episode on Tuesday that will cover Full Gear as well as Leah's adventures in Dynamite, because she was also at the Boston Dynamite last week. We made a last-minute decision to go.
Fair enough. Yeah. You just love your hard cam side, don't you? You just love your hard cam side.
Listen, I love a good hard cam side. And I was also very happy we got to see our friend Jesse Collings, who was there, and talk to him briefly, which was fun. I had a good time. It reminded me a little bit, again, it wasn't a perfect show, but it reminded me a little bit of the old days of just being in Aganis with the sickos. I kind of enjoyed it a little bit more than the Garden, I have to say.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think those sort of venues sometimes are much. It's like when you go to stadium shows and you go to like an arena or a smaller show the next day and you're like, it's like, yeah, I'll do that with Otta when we go to Tokyo Dome, and the next day I'll be like 3,000 people. It's just so much nicer.
Well, and we got to see, we knew Kenny and Hangman were going to be there, but then having a Young Bucks match and Orange Cassidy versus Claudio and Mox match was also a lot of fun. So it was a good evening.
It's funny, isn't it, actually? Hangman, I don't think, wrestled more than once in Boston until this year. And he's wrestled twice, so there you go. That's probably a big thing, as I think everyone's kind of scared that he'll just go back to his 2-minute show.
Well,
again.
That's part of it. I think I'm not as concerned about that as that's the one thing I think with a lot of this is part of me is like, I am not as afraid of him disappearing off television as I appreciably was in 2022. So there's at least a silver lining in that.
True. Right. I should finish this close rather than rambling about Stephanie McMahon and stadiums today. But yeah, listen to Tunnel Talk.
Listen to Tunnel Talk. It's really fucking good.
Yes. We're going to have a Christmas special. It's going to be fun. We are going to
have a Christmas special. It's going to be fucking hilarious. So
Leah's going to kill me because I don't think she's told Tunnel Talk yet.
Hopefully she will before it comes out on Tuesday.
You can find Tunnel Talk and all the other great podcasts on our network. Wherever you listen to your podcasts and also on Red Circle, you can join us all in the Social Suplex Discord. Come and hang out with everybody, discuss wrestling, post pictures. I don't know, it's going to be fun. New Japan season coming up as well. I'm sure we have a weird mix of Japanese fans and Western fans. Japanese wrestling, Western fans wrestling. So I think it's quite good fun to have. And come play Scrandal as well, because I quite enjoy playing.
Every morning.
Every morning you got to play. You got to pick the worst Scran or the good Scran. That's part of the deal. Come to Discord. It's the signing up agreement. You can also find us on Twitter at Trish and Sarah. You can find us on Blue Sky under our own names. Sorry, Aaron, it is still broken. Yeah, he asked me and I was like, I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know anything technical. No one knows anything technical. You can email us at... Okay. Strangled dolphin. You can email us at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. Once more, thank you very much to Chop Teas for all their support over
we really
last
appreciate
year.
them.
So sorry that what's happened to your business through the world economy, or the Americans, at the current time.
We suck.
So, well, your leadership sucks, but so does ours sometimes. So there we are. Anyway, we will see you in 2 weeks. It's going to be interesting actually, because been midway through the C2. Japan should be really kind of heading towards its big season, and John Cena will be like a week off his final week, so that can be kind of an interesting one. So until then, I've been Trish.
I've been Sarah.
And this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Thank you all for listening, and please write up the quotes, because I'm sure this one's going to be fun for that.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences, and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity, and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently, too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.